Hello everyone, and welcome to Cosmere Counseling, podcast exploring therapeutic lessons we can glean from the work of our favorite author, Brandon Sanderson. I'm Joseph, a licensed marriage and family therapist.
I'm Danielle, a board-certified behavior analyst.
And I'm Garrett, also a board-certified behavior analyst.
Welcome to part 2 of our conglomeration of reactions to the psychological themes in Isles of Emberdark. So, spoiler warning for that book, Isles of Emberdark. Don't listen to this if you haven't read that book. Also, maybe don't listen to this if you haven't listened to part 1, because we will probably be referencing it. We'll definitely be referencing the story that we summarized in part 1. So go get that context and then come back here. We talked about the things that we learned from Dusk in part 1. And today we're going to talk about some things we can learn from Starling and the team.
Okay.
So what are your guys' big thoughts on Starling?
I like her.
I love Starling. I love her so much. I want her in all the books.
It is not often we get a viewpoint from a dragon, so it's really interesting.
That was fun.
For her as a viewpoint character. And
so much lore.
Oh
yeah. And I also just love the Firefly group dynamic. If you listeners know the TV show Firefly, that's what we're referencing.
Or Teen Titans.
Or like
any
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yes.
Oh, those are great. Yeah.
Well, you have just hodgepodge of people from different backgrounds, and they're just working together on a cruise ship. Like that is always a fun.
I love that trope.
Setup.
Very different people that all learn to accept and work together. I love it.
I love that trope as well. Just seeing them all together and the lore, the amount of lore that we got just like on Yolen. I thought it was going to be a bit more of a secret where Yolen was in the Cosmere, and they just kind of spit it out. There's Yolen. That's the name of the dragon planet.
In the original planet, right? That Ilnasium was on.
Yes. Yeah. So that was really cool to me. I was like, cool. Now we know where Yolen is. I thought I'd have to wait a lot longer.
They said where it is?
Well, pretty much. They said it was under the silver light in that giant perpendicularity. That's the way in. So you don't know where that is in the Cosmere, but you know.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point in the timeline, Yolen is not a secret. Silverlight is there. There's a university. People coming from all over the place all go there. So it's not like it's a secret at that point anymore.
Well, let's give Starling some counseling. What?
Sounds like someone does not like Starling.
I like people I give counseling to. Yeah, Joseph's talking about, before we started recording, I said I'm interested because Garrett said Starling is his favorite character, and all of my notes on her have been, these are the things she's doing wrong. Like, not in like a finger wagging way, but here's some ways she can improve, where I feel like everything I said about Dusk was, this is what we can learn from him. He's doing so well. And everything I have to say about Starling is like, here's some ways she can improve. So I was interested to see, not that I dislike her, but I'm sure Garrett has lots of thoughts about ways we can learn from her. So it'll be good to get that
perspective.
Both perspectives.
Yeah.
All makes sense. Yeah, we can definitely play onto that because I know she makes mistakes. I'm curious to hear all the ways you feel like she didn't do things right.
To start off, what I saw in Starling's arc is her journey of how to become an effective leader, finding her place and her leadership style, and becoming someone that her crew can trust.
Yeah.
And what I saw also is that she has a lot of unregulated optimism that is sometimes not grounded in reality.
That's true. That's one of her main things, is just trying to say, look on the bright side, I've got this. And she does have a lot of good ideas, just it can be toxic, basically.
I think that's my biggest analysis of Starling is her optimism kind of fixation. So she fixates on this, I need to be optimistic, I need to say something positive, to the point that it's distressing her. And then also she fixates on, I need to get my crew out of this. I need to be the one to save them. And I think those are the two things that she spends a lot of time focusing on that don't, Hoyd helps kind of bring her out of it in the end.
Right.
To let's all be here together in this hard space and work together. You don't have to save your crew. And the saying something optimistic too, like there's a lot of she wraps it up in her sense of self-worth. She believes that I'm not being true to myself if I'm not optimistic. I'm the optimistic person. And then I need to, oh man, I'm going to get into my whole thing now.
Keep going.
Here's my thing with Starling. She has what we call it's called experiential attachment in acceptance commitment therapy world. But your brain can sometimes set something up as a symbol for success that's not actually making a difference in your life. So the most common example is getting likes or followers on Facebook or sorry, now you know what generation I'm from. Whatever your social media is.
Right. Or views on TikToks and
Right. Getting your likes or followers. People set that up as, oh, if I only get more likes, that means I have connection. That means I have friends. That means I'm popular. When a lot of times, maybe that's not where they're getting meaningful engagement, meaningful connection, right? So in that case, which, that's not always the case. But if that's the case for you, that like becomes a symbol for, oh, yeah, I got a like, I'm successful. But then nothing in your real life changes. And for Starling, when she's able to say something positive, she has this little hit of dopamine, like, oh yeah, I'm positive. I did it. I'm optimistic. Look at me. I'm a good leader. But they're still stuck in the situation. And she even, she doesn't always tell her crew how bad it is because she's so focused on, I got this, that it's actually causing problems in her real life with her crew. The reason I think this is so important to me right now is because I'm facing a lot of this in my life. I've just had I had a baby last year. You guys heard him in episode 2 or something like that. And I'm very good at to-do lists, making and completing to-do lists. And for my whole life, that's been a very functional thing, a very useful thing where I finished my to-do list and then I get to play. I finished my homework after school and then I got to play while my parents hounded my siblings. They never had to hound me. I finished my work, I get to play. And that's always worked. And now that I have a baby, the to-do list doesn't end. And the baby needs to play sometimes when my to-do list isn't done. So I have this oh, yay, I checked off a box. I'm successful, but I also ignored my baby. Right. I'm facing the same thing that Starling is. Oh, I said something positive. I'm being true to myself. I'm a good leader. But they're still stuck in the situation. The crew still isn't banding together.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. That she gets a little too optimistic. I keep thinking of the quote that Galadon. I'm going back to Elantris here, so a little deep dive into Brandon Sanderson.
No spoilers?
No, there's no spoilers. It's just a little quote that he says. Okay. He's just a character in Elantris that is more pessimistic, and he has a friend that is optimistic. And he says to his optimistic friend, that's the problem with you optimists. You think that just a simple happy word is going to fix the issue, but you don't realize that it's making us feel worse or something along those lines. And so Starling, I don't think she takes it that far. I don't think her crew is super pessimistic and going through depression or anything, but her optimism does kind of smother their ideas, and she takes it, like you were saying. I feel like another thing that she uses to judge if she's being successful is if her plan works. Not just a plan, not just the crew's plan. It has to be the plan she came up with, because in her mind, that's what a good leader does, is come up with the entire plan, and anything that's less than that isn't going to be effective.
Well, and I think it's important to, optimism, we're not saying optimism is bad. There's actually a pretty clear difference in the research to this idea of desperately clinging to and obsessing over positivity is very different than prioritizing and savoring and doing things to increase positivity in a non-obsessive clinging way. And you can see, I love the way Brandon writes her, because it's so clear. You can see the obsession, I have to say something positive, and you can see how that is causing her distress. It's not oh, I want to have a positive experience with my crew. How can I do that today? You don't see it working for her.
Yeah, it's almost like this situation has created a need for her to be optimistic about, and if she cannot be optimistic within this context, then she has failed, and so she's obsessing over, I have to find the silver lining somehow within this context that is very, very, very difficult.
And she's already in such a hard situation, and now she's giving herself another thing to worry about. Not only do we have to escape the Scadrians, but I have to find something optimistic to say.
Right, to bring the morale up.
So I love that it's when she's finally willing to be vulnerable and feel her less than optimistic feelings and share them with her crew, that's when they really get the connection and move forward.
Right. Can positivity or optimism become toxic? Yes, especially in a team setting, because when you're with a team, you have different perspectives. You're working with different people, come from different backgrounds and different specializations. And when you're working on a project and when there's only positivities, there's no one willing to face the facts and provide critical feedback and critiques and how we can improve, not just that, oh, everything is fine and dandy, we should just keep going forward with this. Then you're really not grounded in reality, and you're simply living in an echo chamber of yes mans. And that can backfire when you're so up in the clouds, when reality is what is so far beneath you, and whatever product or project that you're working on just becomes so detached from reality.
I think that's interesting. Next to a conversation we had last time, Garrett mentioned confirmation bias and the way it was helping us on a positive side of confirmation bias. And here's, a less helpful side of confirmation bias. If you're like just looking for the positive and just having this obsession of I have to find the positive, that you're missing other things.
Right.
Yeah.
And this happens a lot in work situation where your boss may have an idea, and because they're your boss, you can't say no. You feel like you can't say no. You have to kind of say, oh, this is a great idea. In reality, there might be things we need to fix about that. But of course, you can't say that to your boss, can you? Right?
Can you?
And so,
is this a good enough team that we can?
Correct. If you have a good team set up where the crew trusts the leader, there can be a free flowing of information and constructive criticism that bounce back and forth between the members of that team. Then you have a effective team dynamic. If it's just that we just have to make sure that the leader or the team leader's ego isn't hurt, you're screwed.
That's the phenomenon called groupthink out in the business world, where everyone just agrees with the boss and you end up with an idea that kills your company. It usually ends in disaster when you have too much groupthink going on.
So bad social psychology outcomes come from that.
Right.
And I don't think Starling, I don't think it's an ego thing, but she believes that leadership means saving them, swooping in and saving them.
Right.
And that has become more important. Both things, the upholding that I'm the optimistic person and being true to myself in that way, and then finding a way to save my team, that's become more important than facing the grave reality of the situation.
Right.
She's got that cognitive bias towards holding those two things rather than, and missing out on not only the reality of the situation and what needs to be done there, but the connection that she could have with her team if she comes down on a more human level. That's the wrong word because she's a dragon.
And that is actually what saved their team dynamic. That is what propelled Starling's growth, is that she is willing to listen. At the end, she's able to see where she lacks, and she's able to learn to rely on her team. And she doesn't have to be the person with all the bright ideas all the time. And so that is what eventually got them through their trial in the book.
I think it also relates to another one of Starling's struggles is she is defining her leadership quality as being able to get them out of the problem, which is focusing on the outcome, focusing on the accomplishments, when success isn't defined by your accomplishment. We call this putting outcome over process. If you're a Stormlight fan, they call it putting destination over journey. And she's doing this where your character and the process you follow is oftentimes more important than the accomplishments. If you think about, we talked about teams and work. If you think about, at least for me, my bosses, my leaders I've had in the past, I've had some really great ones and some not so good ones. And I'm not going to tell you about my really great ones by telling you that they secured this really good deal and that's why they're great, or they made this cool workflow system. Like, it's not about their accomplishments. I love those bosses because of the way, the process, because of the way they treated me, because of how they taught me, because of how they respected me. Is that just me, or does that sound consistent for your guys' experience?
I agree. I've had bosses that they put outcome over everything, and it kind of drags the team down. But if it's more about like the growing together, they take the time to like really shape you the same way that Starling does, because she does overpower them. This is where I like Starling. Like, she overpowers them a lot in the ideas, but she definitely leans into their talents a lot and lets them be who they are when it's not idea time. There's a part where they're getting chased by the entity, and she lets the pilot take it. She's like, "Yep, you're good at this." And she makes a very specific comment about it. I can't remember what it was, but she lets them do their thing. And those are the bosses, when they just let me do my thing, they mentor me as needed. That's what really makes a difference for me as well.
I think that's where her optimism shines, is when it's, forget the
Yes.
pilot's name, but at one point she was saying she couldn't do it. And
Uh-huh.
Starling was like, no, you can, because
Right.
I've seen these silver linings of what you can do.
Mm-hmm.
Leonore. I just Googled it. Her name's Leonore.
Yes, Leonore.
Yeah, and this is very deeply rooted in our human psychology, right? Because when we're looking at not just family relationship, but just any sort of relationships, what is going to impact you more is how you feel when you're interacting with this person, not necessarily about their own individual accomplishment. Because you can have a Nobel Prize winning the smartest person on earth, and yet they could have a broken family. Like, that's totally possible because those are two very different things.
Well, and maybe that prize becomes a symbol for success, and you just chase more prizes,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not fulfilled if what you're actually looking for is family connection.
Right, with that human connection, right? So goes back to what you're saying, how you don't really rave about the bosses you like because of their accomplishment, but about how they treated you. Like, that is a very human thing. So when we're looking at leadership and growth within our own leadership capability, what we really want to focus on is, how can I create a trustworthy dynamic between me and my crew or my team? How can I foster that trust between us so that we can all learn and grow together, recognizing that we have our blind spots, we have our weaknesses, and we need each other in order to succeed. And when you have someone who's, like in the book, Starling sees each of her crew's specialty, their strengths, then she's able to, they can work together to get out of that situation. But comparing them to the Scadrians,
Oh,
the Scadrians are very, like, it's all that one guy essentially calling all the shots. And after he's swallowed up by the entity, the entire Scadrian force in that area kind of just fell apart.
yeah. There was no loyalty to him or to the cause. It was
Mhm.
all, they were all there for a paycheck, and
And he wanted a chance to, prove himself to.
it was all about building his ego.
Right, it really is all about building his ego.
Wasn't going to do anything for the crew, his crew.
Right. And so you have this directly opposite example within the same book
Cool.
of Starling growing into a effective leader that has a respect of her crew, that knows how to work with her crew, versus a egomaniac who hoards all the power, who is very dictative, and essentially just the exact opposite of what a good leader actually is. And yet, we have too many of that kind of leader in our current society right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. I didn't realize until you just made that comparison of, it's almost a direct contrast. They're almost complete opposites, and I never realized that till right now. As he literally just cares about the outcome. It's all about, once I get to that island, I will be respected, all my crew will be respected, and everyone's just along for the ride. Like, yeah, we kind of hate this guy, but he's taking us cool places. And then when it falls apart, they just kind of all fall to pieces. As to where Starling, she's like, I don't know where we're going. I don't know how we're going to get there, but we're going to do it together. And her crew's like, cool, we can fail a million times and we still love you, Starling. So it's a really cool comparison.
Her goal is the crew. Her goal is,
Right.
we are going to survive. We are going to thrive. I'm going to take care of these people. We're going to be a family.
Mm-hmm.
When his goal is self
self-promotion,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
So what you focus on really, as a leader, really dictate the direction that you're going to go with what you do and how you lead your team. And I think Starling is a great example that she focuses on the right thing. What is her focus as a leader? It's her crew.
I agree. I think a good way that she really focuses on her crew, and this is one of the things I love about her, is the way that she serves them. A big topic in like leadership and things like that is service leadership and leading by example. And she's always looking
Mhm.
for ways to help others throughout the entire journey. Even like with her engineer Adatil, if I remember right. Yeah, Adatil. She gives her tickets and says, "Hey, you can go home." And that's kind of an inconvenience to the crew, you know. We just lost our eighth engineer because Starling noticed she felt a little homesick, but Starling is totally willing to give her that opportunity to go home to show that she
Mhm.
cares for them. And we
Mhm.
talked about it a little bit before where she lets them do their roles and she gets out of the way, but she's really good at serving them, helping them if they need like some encouragement in the moment because she is really good at optimism. Or if
Mhm.
she needs to do something for them, she's always immediately there.
Yeah, I love that example of Adatil. And like selfishly, my needs are going to be better met if you stay, but I'm here for you, you know?
Mhm. It's
And
not about me.
yeah.
And I love how Starling spends that kind of attention and time with each of her crew.
Mhm. And Adatil is going to be so much better of a member of the team knowing that you're not keeping me here for your own aims, your own ambitions. I chose to be here.
Right. Yeah, and that is the kind of trust that you want to create.
Because we have the same values, we have the same goals.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's a good team. Mm.
Yeah. And I think you see a contrast in the team when they let Starling serve them and when Starling lets them serve her with the Sleepless that's on the crew, that Dr. Sleepless,
Chrysalis.
Chrysalis. She does not let Starling serve her and just feels so mistrustful and ends up almost ruining everything by going and doing her own thing. That's what causes a lot of the issues towards the end of Emberdark is Chrysalis tries to make it to the island by herself with her little bugs and they get caught. So, and I think that all started with not trusting her, not letting Starling serve Chrysalis, and vice versa. Chrysalis wouldn't help out Starling. It was very much a, I'm in my lane, you're in your lane, we've got a wall here, we're just doing our jobs. And nothing ever gets
Mm-hmm.
done with all those walls up.
Well, and Chrysalis had, I mean, she had a lot of trauma, you know,
Yeah.
getting into that. She was very much in the survival mode of I can't trust anyone.
Mm-hmm.
But Starling was able to, by the end, I think, very gently kind of
Mhm.
show her little by little that maybe we can be a team. I think there's still a
Roads
road
to go.
to go on
Yeah.
that one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But that'll be cool to see. I hope we get to see more of Chrysalis kind of breaking down those walls and being able to be open with people again.
And this is the beautiful thing about these kind of story is that it continues to demonstrate a reality in our life that human connection, genuine human connection, is what really heals people.
Hmm.
Human connection and people can oftentimes hurt us the most, that's for sure. But it's also that very same thing that when we meet someone who is willing to love unconditionally and to serve us because they want to, there's no ulterior motive, they're just doing a good thing because that's what they do. It's interaction with these kind of people and having these positive experiences that heals the trauma that initially got us to build up all these walls. And that is also one of the hardest things as someone who works a lot with trauma patients. That is one of the hardest things to control because I can't go into my client's life in their social circle and tell them, okay, you have to be more around with these people and not these people because these people are going to help you and these other ones are not going to help you, right? I can't control that aspect as much as I want to. I can't. Because it will make things so much easier if I could control who is their friend and who is their family. But that's not how it works. And so I need to teach them how they can protect themselves and yet be open to be on the lookout for people who meet certain traits or criterias that they could try to open themselves to. Through that, they can find that healing for themselves.
You saying that, Joseph, that you want to get into their lives and tell them who to associate with sounds to me a little bit like our Scadrian authoritative leader.
Yeah.
Where what you're actually doing by helping them come to their own conclusions and helping them figure it out in their own life is much more what like it's a good thing you don't have that power, because it leads you more into this space that's much more of a good leader. Starling kind of space, hopefully. I love that Starling, like, she wants them to be united, but she doesn't tell anyone who to be.
Right.
You know?
And that is one of the best trait I feel like she has as a leader.
Yeah.
She allows each of her crew to have their own agency, and yet she still unite them in knowing, what is their goal, what are they trying to accomplish in that direction. She lets each of them bring their self to the table and contribute.
I think this is hitting a little bit on another core behavioral principle that we see in the team, is that people feel more fulfilled when they are being a part of something and reaping the benefits of their own efforts than when being just given the answer.
Right.
Or in today's day and age, deliver dopamine hits on a silver platter. But this actually goes all the way back to B.F. Skinner, the father of behaviorism. He laid the early foundations for a lot of therapy today. And he even back then was talking about helping people who don't need the help can be depriving them from getting the full enjoyment and development that they could get from doing things themselves. So the example he gives is, if you always tie a child's shoes, that might be more efficient, but the child's not going to learn how to tie their own shoes.
Right.
And even though we tell ourselves that we want to just be pampered, if we're just pampered and given everything on a silver platter, usually we're not happy, and we start just chasing more silver platters and our easy dopamine hits that aren't as meaningful and fulfilling as digging in, being part of a team, and that joy of really creating and accomplishing something together, rather than having your dragon leader swoop in and save you. Starling, I think, lands a little bit on both sides of that. Like, she tries to just save them, but she has that inkling of, okay, let's bring all these people's strengths in.
That's reminded me a lot of effective parenting as well, because as a parent of a child that is getting ready to learn how to tie shoes and dresses himself, I would love to be the dragon to just swoop in, get him dressed, get his shoes tied, let's get out the door. We only have like 30 seconds to go before we're late, and we're still asking me questions about Pokemon, which can slow down the process a little bit. And so leadership parenting, I think Starling can show both of those in the same way that she's letting them learn it themselves instead of swooping in and doing it, as you were saying.
Well, and we were just talking about how service is a good thing. Like, maybe me putting on your shoes today is a nice gesture, but tomorrow, maybe it's time for you to learn to tie your own shoes.
Right.
So true. Yeah, that's a tough line to find a lot of times too, is when your serving is getting in the way of other people's growth and development. And I don't have an answer. I think it just depends on every situation.
Yeah.
Always playing like jump rope with that line of too much or too little. I think there is a frequency part of, if I'm always putting my kid's socks on for him, then he never learns. But if he's just having a rough day and I'm like, you know what, man, let's put your socks on, then that can go a long ways. Yes, he could have done it himself, but it was a nice little gesture. So I guess I think that expectation plays a big part. Like, if he expects me to always put on his socks, now my service has become a disservice, because one day I won't be there to put on his socks and he'll need socks on. So yeah, there's like a frequency plus like expectation. I don't know, there's probably some behavioral formula we could make, like frequency plus expectation equals disservice, or I don't know.
Well, and then you got to factor in the efficiency and the benefit. Like, is this benefiting me? Is this benefiting them? Is it making it more efficient? Yes, if I put my kids on, but it ruins the benefit.
Yeah. Anyone listening, it's good to serve people. Still serve people.
Yes, definitely.
If there are mathematicians listening and you want to write us an equation, wow.
I know my siblings listen, and they're good at math.
I think Hoy said some things to Starling about this, about how her obsessive, I'll handle this, I got this, I'm going to take care of it, deprived her team of the opportunity to participate in being part of their own rescue.
Right.
And deprived them of the human connection of seeing their leader as a real person with
a limit,
with anxiety and
yeah.
can have overwhelm. And she's not just this untouchable dragon, but is going through some of the same things that we can relate to. And when you're with good people, when you're on a team, you don't want to be vulnerable with everybody, right? Pick who you're vulnerable with. But with good people, usually being vulnerable tends to make them respect you more rather than less. And I think Starling learns this is I don't have to be that perfect leader on the pedestal. I can show my overwhelm and my team will come in. And because we're a team and because I've fostered this good team relationship with most of them, they're going to come in and support through this and come up with their big great escape plan that she was now enabling them to have when before she was depriving them of the opportunity to participate in.
I think this is one of the reasons why I relate to Starling so much and love her so much, is I too am so bad at opening up to people. And I would need a spiritual experience with Hoide sometimes just to open up and be like, I have no idea what I'm doing, or this is what I'm feeling. So it's tough.
You're using Elantris language there, Hoide. Isn't that
oh my gosh, I am.
That's the Elantrian pronunciation, yes.
What are you reading right now, Garrett?
Are you reading Elantris?
Mistborn. Is it not Hoide? How do you guys say it? Hoide? Oh, it's Hoide. I guess I did recently read Elantris, so that's probably why it's on my brain.
Yeah, Brandon's got like the pronunciation of all the languages on his website, and the audiobook did say Hoide's name in Elantris correctly.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Garrett. Did I cut you off?
No, I was at the end. It's tough. It is a tough thing.
But the more we try and the more we have these positive experiences of opening up and finding people who are trustworthy for us to open up to, like that really builds.
You see it again between our two leaders here, right? Our Scadrian leader is giving these commands and they just need to follow him blindly. I don't know that he's sharing all of his ambitions. He's probably just paying them.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
100%.
And they do what they're paid to do. And following a leader blindly isn't a place that anybody wants to be. And it's not a place where anybody thrives. But when you know the meaning behind what we're doing, and when you know where the leader's coming from, and when they can be open and connect with the team, that's what opens the floor for all of these cool, diverse perspectives in this ragtag team to come together and make something awesome.
Right. Does your team buy into your core value and what you created this team to do? Because if everyone's on board with it, then they choose to be there and choose to contribute to the cause. But if the goal is just, we're going to colonize this world and make money off of them, that is a much more cold and corporate kind of thing. That's
why people resonate with stories like this.
Right.
The ragtag group trying to overcoming the cold money motivated.
Which I think is also a reason why I think we're seeing a lot of going back to buying directly from local businesses, from like local farms and like things like that, rather than through the big corporations. I feel like there's been a slow movement of that in recent years, which I think there's just a genuine human tendency to want to have that connection. And here's another reason why we love Stardew Valley. A side note, for those of you Stardew Valley fans, you know what we're talking about. And so, yeah, I don't know how I got on that topic.
I think you were building on the idea of human connection and service.
Right.
Rather than just getting what you need and leaving.
Right. It's that core value of who we are as a people, who I am as a person, and what do I find important, and is this something that I want to devote my time and my loyalty to? And if you're a leader that can pull people together,
not to tell them what their values are,
right?
Like Adatil could have left, and that would have been totally fine. If he wanted to go home, we all would have cheered for.
But Starling's value is one of the most important things for her is her crew's happiness and her crew's freedom. And so she's going to do whatever she can to protect those two things. And that core value resonated with everyone on the crew. And I think that is one of her biggest strengths as a leader.
I think it's a important thing that she does when she finally chooses to like, they all know what her goals are, but when she chooses to open up and share exactly why they're her goals and why she's struggling with these different things, it helps bring that like shared accountability is what I want to say, but there's like a warmer term that I'm looking for. But they've just got this shared dream, the shared vision of, okay, now we know how to move forward together. A lot like accountability partners in behavior analysis, where you do need another person to not necessarily like keep you on the path, but to like check in with you and help you make the course corrections you need, instead of being like a rigid, no, you did this wrong, get back on track. It's more of a, hey, I know your value. I know that you're kind of moving away from the value here. What can I do to help you and support you? And that's what Starling really needed to level up her leadership, is being able to have someone to do that for her, because she's doing that for everyone else. She just wasn't letting anyone do it for her, which if your leader doesn't have that, your leader can lead you straight off a cliff back to that group think, and you have no idea it's coming because you were just blindly agreeing, thinking everything was fine and dandy.
Yep.
Yeah, she's really good at fostering that connection, which I think Dusk felt that from.
Oh yeah, for sure. Dusk was a loner. He doesn't know how he can fit in modern society, and he doesn't feel like he has a place, and he always had just, wanted to be a lone wolf for the longest time, and that's how he was. But after being around Starling for a while, Starling kind of converted him into this
having friends.
Yeah, of having friends, having a crew, and like how that can be an awesome thing.
I think she did it to all of them. Like Adatil was kind of just doing a job at first, but then it's like, no, this is a family. I want to be here. And, maybe Leonore too, and especially Dusk and Zitzi and Chrysalis.
Right.
With a whole other thing going on there.
Mm-hmm.
But you get to see these people who have walls built up for different reasons, just feeling this shared
connection.
Yeah, connection that she's promoting.
And I think another thing that helped Dusk to learn all of that was how he learned to communicate with everyone, and how that good communication does help us. We talked about it with Dusk in the last part, if I remember right. And if not, I'll say it the first time. If we did, I'll say it again. He learns how important communicating is, that it can build those connections. Without communication, we don't have a way to build a connection. We think we're on the same page as someone else, and we're not. We actually have no idea where they're coming from. For Dusk, it's that he was constantly being treated like a primitive, and even Starling did that for a while. She's like, your stories are kind of silly and they don't bring us any closer, and it's not rooted in fact. But because she's a good leader, she does listen to him and eventually sees his point and sees that actually his story is the reason that they can survive this giant snake monster, the Taquara. And it all started with that that good communication, that she was willing to listen to him and have good communication and say exactly what she was thinking, so Dusk could respond to exactly what she was thinking. Because she's very open. She's very straightforward with people.
She was very respectful. Like, he even says, my communication is bad. I don't know how to communicate. That's something he's facing the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And she was able to, like, yes, she had some thoughts that he was primitive, but I don't know that she ever said it out loud. That's a good first step.
Yeah,
right.
Keep it in the head.
There's a reason why when couples come into therapy, the first thing we teach them, usually like 90% out of the time, is how do you listen to each other effectively? A lot of the times couples get hung up on the way they communicate that led to them unable to solve the problems that they're facing. Like, if we can teach them more effective way of working with each other, they usually can solve a lot of their issues. So effective listening and being able to withhold your thoughts and then communicate in a loving way of your concerns and what you're seeing, and be able to do that perspective taking is so important in creating a relationship.
I didn't think about that. Starling shelved her own agenda for a while to just listen to where he was coming from, even though she wasn't familiar with it and it was new and foreign to her.
Right.
Admirable.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who didn't do that at first was Zitzi and Chrysalis.
Oh, yes. They're fighting all the time.
I feel like we could do a whole episode on them, but since we're trying to fit the conglomeration into this two-parter, I did want to just mention that that's a whole arc to follow. I think
It'll be interesting to see where they take it from here.
yeah, and so relatable to have these two people who have their lives and they have their experience, which has told them that the other person is
The enemy.
the other,
Mm-hmm.
right? And Zeetzi's people had been attacked by the Sleepless. Chrysalis is a Sleepless, and she's been discriminated against her whole life. And you could totally see, Garrett mentioned she's setting up all these other escape things and not working with the team because she's in survival mode and knows, quote unquote, knows that she can't trust anybody and she's got to be out for herself. And they're kind of like, that's where Starling needs to push more as he tries to bring this team together, is on these two. She does quite a bit of pushing to try to bring them out to be willing to work together.
Mm-hmm.
They are two people that definitely need to communicate better with each other, and they get better throughout the books. By the end of the story, Zeetzi's willing to give her some sort of a chance, and Chrysalis is coming into the idea of, maybe I can trust these people. They didn't leave me to die, because they do risk their lives to save her from like the crushing heat that's going on.
Right.
It is a really cool, like you said, very cool arc to follow. We could definitely talk about it a ton, and I want to learn more about Zeetzi's world, so that would be cool too.
Yeah. Wow. I think that's a relatable thing for everybody, though, because everybody has these. A lot of what therapy is breaking down judgments that you might have
Mm-hmm.
that don't fit your current situation. Our brains
Right.
are made to categorize.
It's very good at that too.
Which is a really great thing because it allows you to quickly pick up on important things and not spend way too long thinking about unimportant things. You look at a toddler who hasn't formed their categories yet and they're distracted by every little rock. But once you're an adult, you could be like, that's a rock, that's normal, move on. Oh, that's a Sleepless, that's dangerous. The problem is, you period, end of story right there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where Zeetzi is that's a Sleepless, that's dangerous, that's bad, end of story. And a lot of us fall into that. And in Chrysalis too, like, I can't trust anybody, end of story.
Mm-hmm.
Danielle, I'm just wondering where you're taking your toddler on walks to see Sleepless and Rocks at the same place.
Bugs.
That's fair.
You don't know they're not hordlings.
They're among us. Naturally, we're gonna have those in-group, out-group type of thinking going on. It's very much ingrained in our human nature. Our brain likes to do that.
But on a team,
yeah, right, that really
gets in the
becomes
way.
Yes, that does get in the way. So another trait of an effective leader is be able to help bridge that gap and break down some of those preconceived assumptions that we have about one another, so that we can work together toward a common cause.
Well, and a trait of an effective team member is, look out at, yes, I have this past history with Sleepless, or yes, I have this past history of people betraying me, but, what's happening right now, and is that different than what my category is telling me? Because there are so many little clues that Chrysalis has no intention of doing anything to Zeetzi. And, there are so many clues that she's in pain.
Mm-hmm.
Although her survival, I agree, so many clues that she's in pain, and to an untrained observer that doesn't really know what a Sleepless has gone through, it can look a little threatening, because Chrysalis does have little hordlings to imitate all their voices. If you didn't know her past and her trauma, that could feel super threatening. Of, you're gonna imitate my voice, are you gonna steal my social security number or something, or the Scadrian version of social security number? So it can be really tough.
And she's spying on them.
Yeah, she's always listening to make sure she's staying safe, but to them it's oh, totally spying. And breaking that down, they just need good team therapy.
Therapy.
Well, we talked about be vulnerable with people you can trust, and that's a good point. If they're spying on you and have things imitating your voices, Zeetzi's got a point. Maybe you don't want to be vulnerable yet, but
right,
the walls are starting to be broken down, which is exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully they can have a really cool relationship in the future.
Yeah, I'm interesting to see where this goes on the book, just on their crew.
Oh my gosh, yes.
It'd be so nice. And I feel like it's going to be a long time until we get anything more on them, because it's space age, and we are not near space age in any other series. Makes me sad, but I'm hopeful.
More secret projects.
Oh, that's true. There are the secret projects.
I mean, he keeps saying he's done with them, but they keep having more. So,
There's always another secret. He already spoiled that for us.
Yep.
any last thoughts, everybody? I think we didn't really
I'm
have a
good.
topic, but we kind of did. Teamwork and leadership, guys.
Woo!
For action items today, same as last time, we didn't really have a topic today. So what stood out to you? Think about, are there things that you can do to improve your leadership, to improve your team participation? Are there people that maybe you're judging or categorizing too much that you can be looking more into? What else did we talk about, guys?
Did we say communication and
Are
serving?
there ways to improve your communication within your relationships?
If it's an attribute that Starling has that you want to imitate, maybe think about how many you want to do that. What are some of the things that Starling did that maybe you can apply in your own life?
Or is there something Starling struggling with that you can relate to? Are you putting too much effort into something that maybe doesn't matter and isn't affecting your real situation?
Right.
I wish I had the book here and I could say exactly what Hoyt tells Starling, but something along the lines of, is there more to your team? Is there more to your situation than the one thing you're focusing on right now? How can you broaden your perspective? Thank you for joining us. We hope you have felt inspired to take the next step on your journey. Please share your thoughts and experiences and ask your questions using the comment function or by emailing us at fantasyframeworkstherapy@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. You can also follow us on Facebook for between episode updates. And remember to learn from the journey.
We want to thank Kryogenic Design for the art thumbnail and Dr. Dave Schramm and Rex Polanis from the Stronger Marriage podcast for their mentoring in getting this podcast started.